So if you hadn't heard this yet, Clarkesworld, which is a major science fiction magazine for short stories and the like, has closed its doors to submissions as a result of the AI written stories that are flooding the marketplace. This is a similar situation to what is going on with AI art flooding the marketplace as a result of all of these new advances in artificial intelligence. And on the one hand, man, I get it. I really do get where they're coming from. But at the same time, I'm also someone who sits here with Chris, who works on the art for our tabletop world of the Weave and the Void. And she and I have had conversations about AI art. And for the two of us, it's been this situation where we just don't really mind using AI art blended together with the art that she does because it helps us make a living. And if it's just two people, and then we have my brother involved in the project as well, but there's it's a small enough enterprise that it's not something that impacts us really at all. Now, I also have 20 plus years of freelancing behind me, and I've published, I don't know, something like 20 million words of content around the world since I started as a writer. And this sort of terrifies me because it's impossible to make a living if I were to be a freelancer, which is a different thing than what I'm doing with Chris and my brother, where we're creating our own products and I'm making content for the internet and making money off of YouTube. You know what I mean? YouTube and Patreon and so on and so forth. So it's different, but it does bleed over, and it's such a incredibly complex conversation. So let's just start with what they're talking about here. You've got, I believe his name is Neil. I forget. It's been a while. I used to submit to Clarkesworld years and years and years and years and years ago. It says here, it's no longer possible for me to keep up with responses to this tweet and the others. So he's going to put a few things out there. He says, we aren't closing the magazine. Closing submissions simply means that we aren't considering stories from authors at this time. We will reopen, but have not set a date. We don't have a solution to the problem. We only have ideas for minimizing it. Unfortunately, the problem isn't going away. Detectors are unreliable, and pay to submit sacrifices too many legit authors. Print submissions are not viable for us. Various third-party tools for identity confirmation are more expensive than magazines can afford and tend to have regional holes, and adopting them would be the same as banning entire countries. We could easily implement a system that only allowed authors that had previously submitted work to us, but that would effectively ban new authors, which is not acceptable because they are an essential part of the ecosystem and our future. Number 5, the people causing the problem are from outside the science fiction and fantasy community, largely driven by the side hustle experts making claims of easy money using ChatGPT. They are driving this and deserve some of the disdain shown to the AI developers. Now, I'm going to come back to point 5 here in a minute because there's complexity here. There's a lot of complexity to that, and I want to have a conversation with people about it. And number 6, it says our guidelines already state that we don't want AI written or assisted works. They don't care. A checkbox in a form isn't going to stop them. They just lie. If you want to support the magazine, the best thing you can do is subscribe. Anything we do to fight this will cost us in time or money to acquire tools, and with us losing Amazon as a subscription retailer later this year, the timing couldn't be worse. So I feel for Clarkesworld. I do. However, I also look at this from a realist standpoint. Anytime I see people, discussing or debating or complaining about the rise of technology, I remember early in my freelancing career when I was doing a lot of website content, there was a project I had where I was covering the invention of the threshing machine, which was implemented in England during the Industrial Revolution. So this was a device which automated the jobs that had previously manually been done by all of these seasonal workers who came to the wheat fields during harvest time, and they would harvest all the wheat, and then they would take the wheat that had been harvested and they would take chains on the end of sticks and other means, but they would thresh the wheat, and what they were doing is separating the seeds from the stalk and the wheat from the chaff and everything else. But that was a manual procedure whereby you're literally just manual labor of beating the plants until you separate the seeds out. The threshing machine comes along, and suddenly you can dump all the plant material into this machine, and it does all this shaking around and movement, and it shakes the seeds out, and then it spits out all the crap at the other end of the machine. And when this machine was first introduced during the Industrial Revolution, it caused riots. Like literally, there were laborers who would go to the farmers who had bought the machines, and they would torch their barns to the ground and destroy the machines. Like they would literally just burn the entire farm to the ground, burn all the buildings, burn the machines, sometimes burn the fields, in retaliation to these farmers basically destroying their livelihood and wanting to automate um, their work. And I always come back to that because in the face of innovation, in the face of evolution, we are nothing in the face of that. Like you can't stop evolution from happening. You can't stop innovation from happening. You can't stop the human species from pushing forward towards whatever is the next stage of our development. And AI and robots are the next stage of our evolution. We know this. It's not something that is up for debate. It is a fact. So there is that part of this. Like, rather than trying to fight against it, we should figure out a way to work with it. However, I also understand being in a really challenging position of wanting to do the right thing, which is provide, you know, income to actual writers as opposed to people who are just using an AI bot to write their fiction for them. Therefore, they aren't actually doing any of the um, automation. However, this brings to mind, I want to say there was an episode of Love, Death, and Robots that sort of covered this. I think there was an AI. Wasn't it the one? It was called something Blue. I could swear there was an episode that was about like a robot or an AI who became this international, or excuse me, not internationally, but intergalactically known artist. This AI and became like this celebrity artist because they were always creating amazing art, but it was literally just a robot, a cyborg. I could swear there was an episode of Love, Death, and Robots that was about this, and I feel like it was a really good episode. It had to have been that show. It's either that or Black Mirror. It's got to be Love, Sex. Anyway, there have been conversations about this in the past, so I understand. On the one hand, you want to provide a meaningful, you know, wage to people who really need it. Um, but on the other hand, it's like, well, if AI is creating good enough fiction that it is entertaining your readers and potentially winning awards as well, where do you draw the line? I mean, that's a hard sell because, coming up from, I'm sure from their perspective, they're saying we want to be able to provide money to people who are writing these stories, but we also are in the business of providing entertainment. That's what a magazine is. A magazine is an entertainment venue. No different than a television channel or a podcast or my YouTube channel. It's these are venues for entertainment. And it's not like it's a educational platform. It's not like it's a educational institution or a hospital or anything. It's an entertainment venue. We don't need magazines to survive. They are artistic endeavors. They are there for the enjoyment of art. So that's a tricky conversation to have in terms of how do you approach this. I think in their situation, they're feeling frustrated with the fact that their inbox has become flooded with submissions that have been written by AI as opposed to real human beings, and there's no way to detect it. Like, or you can read through it, and in some cases you can tell whether it's been written by a human or not because there's errors in there. And with these people just mass soliciting and mass spamming inboxes because you can task an AI to do something. So if let's say it takes me 10 days to write a short story, in the 10 days that it takes me to write a short story, that chat program can probably write 500 short stories. I'm making a bullshit estimate there. I'm saying that's for the sake of argument. So if I can only submit one in 10 days and they could submit 500 in 10 days, imagine if you've got 500 of these chat AI people who are submitting hundreds of submissions every single day with the occasional real life person slipping through. You're never going to be able to sift through that stack and find the one person who actually you want to pay, because it's all the rest of it's just AI. Now, I do want to circle back to, because there is a little bit of um, there's some controversy here in point number 5 about how AI developers deserve disdain. I do not agree with that at all, because I am absolutely in the camp that better AI is going to drive the future. It's going to drive our evolution as a species. And so I'm always, always, always going to be in favor of advancements in AI, advancements in technology, advancements in science, advancements in bio. I'm always going to be for that because it pushes our species towards the next stage of evolution. The downside to that is these are some of the side effects. These are some of the consequences, is that the little guy can get crushed in that. How do you balance that? I don't have an answer to that. I'd love to hear thoughts. If you have those, drop them down in the comments below. But the other part of this is said they're largely driven by the side hustle experts making claims of easy money with ChatGPT. So one of the things I've seen on YouTube recently, which I first became aware of it as a result of the all the OGL fiascos with tabletop, right? So we started seeing people who were talking about, like, here's like the dark fantasy version of if The Witcher was made in the 80s, or here's like the dark fantasy version of, if He-Man was, a live action in the 80s. And we started getting these AI pictures of what that would look like. And then that turned into, I've seen YouTube channels now that have literally, they're just dedicated to creating really cool looking dark fantasy medieval um, art, and these montage pieces on YouTube where they string together, 40, 50, 100 images that look like they're from some dark fantasy 80s film, and they're really all just done by an AI thing. Now, in that case, it's just a YouTube video, right? What harm is it doing? I can watch it and be entertained by it. And you look down at the bottom and it's something where it's like the channel just got started, like, 3 months ago, and it already has 25,000 followers, 50,000 followers. The videos are getting 2, 3 million. And I'm just sitting here going, God, some of my videos still only get 30 to 50 views. And I've been at this for years, so there's, it's a struggle of going, that'd be really cool to do one of those videos for my channel and watch it explode. But at the same time, it's like, one is just for pure entertainment and the other one is, are you stealing someone's livelihood? But this comes back to that age old debate about, well, what is or isn't ethical in terms of putting food on your table, and should we even give a shit about ethics in those scenarios, because no one else out there cares about you. It's me, myself, and I. Like, at the end of the day, everyone is going to do what it takes to put food on their table, and you can try to be ethical in business, but the reality is that's a hard line to walk when you need to worry about putting food on the table, keeping the lights turned on. If I'm Clarkesworld and I'm trying to keep my magazine going and I'm trying to maintain my employment and maintain my business and keep my business afloat, um, I'm going to be struggling as they are with trying to find a solution to it. In their case, they're flat out not wanting to deal with any AI written content whatsoever and try to figure out a way to filter it out. Um, and I don't know if that's the right solution. Maybe it is. Um, I think that in my mind, a more interesting solution might be to, and it's again, I don't think it's not their solution. I'm saying it's a solution that I would consider would be saying that, okay, let me adapt to the times. I want to try to maintain my publication, but I have to admit that this is going to be a thing that's not going away. So maybe I say that, you know, we somehow figure out a way. I don't know how. I'm just thinking out loud for the purpose of this video right now. What if I came up with a way somehow to figure out how to siphon out and say, okay, these are the AI submissions and these are the human submissions. Let's go ahead and accept, you know, a couple of those human submissions versus, having 80%, having 80% be human submissions and two that are AI. Hang on, let me look this up. What is that? Love, Death, and Robots season 1. I could swear that where's it at? Beyond the Aquila Rift. More episodes. Zima Blue. Renowned artist Zima reflects on his mysterious past and rises in the spotlight before revealing his final piece. Can I look this up? I could swear that he ends up being a robot. Uh, uh, uh. Is this going to give me a review of it? As Zima Blues delves into his history, he weaves a tale about a young woman who had a love for practical robots. Favoring the robot she designed to clean her pool, the young woman would upgrade the machine gradually so it could perform its task better. The upgrades gave the robot a full color vision system alongside and the robot equivalent of a brain so it could process and model its surroundings. By giving the robot a brain, it became a very basic AI, but this allowed the robot to make its own decisions, thus deciding on new methods and techniques to clean the pool. With each passing upgrade of new software and tech made the little pool cleaning robot more aware of itself. With the passing of the one woman, the robot was left to be shifted from owner to owner. With each new owner came more modifications, and with each upgrade, the little robot became more me. As Zima reveals, the little robot in the story was him all along. His final art is going to be his return to where he was born, rebuilding the pool he once cleaned. The artist reveals the origin of his name to be the color of the tiles he once cleaned. The manufacturer had called them Zima Blue, the first thing his robotic eyes ever laid eyes upon. Or the first thing his robotic eyes ever laid upon. That night, Zima Blue would reveal his final art piece. Jumping into the pool, Zima would deconstruct and uninstall all the upgrades that came before it, and as his human robotic shell is peeled away, all that is left is the little robot programmed to clean the pool once more. He had spent his entire life trying to find meaning, in particular through art. His return to the pool and deconstruction of the robot body was Zima's way of finding peace and returning to a time that was more simple in his life. A symbolic approach to rebirth, in the end, the most beautiful piece of art Zima had ever laid eyes upon was, in fact, the very first time he was able to comprehend vision. In his return to the pool as a cleaning bot, it allowed Zima to live his remaining days peacefully doing what he loved most, cleaning the pool of his beloved creator. It was a very emotional episode if you haven't watched it, but it literally was all about an AI that became an artist and became this, intergalactically famous artist. And then his final piece was basically somewhat of a suicide, but not really, just a rebirth going back to his roots. And I feel like it does pertain to the conversation because I think that AI is capable of producing art that is worthy of consumption and worthy of consideration in the scope of entertainment. But the question some people like Clarkesworld are struggling with is at what cost? I don't have an answer to that. I think it's a great conversation. That's what I wanted to do with this video. Hopefully, that's what we're going to have as a result of this. So let's converse in the comments below. If you liked what you heard here today, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon because we do more stuff like this here on my channel. And support if you can with all the ways listed down there. Memberships are the easiest way here on YouTube. Also, a Patreon page if you want to get involved with the stuff that Chris and I are working on with my brother. And until next time, stay safe and happy reading, happy viewing, happy whatever you're doing to consume art and enjoyment in your life.